something to see.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Project Shadow. My name's Charlie. You might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset. And today, I want to take you on a strange journey. Yeah. Lots of weird things going on in my life and in my head, and it's been a while since I've done just like a personal episode to kind of catch you all up on what's been going on, and I thought it was time. So today is what I am doing. Because I've been having a lot of ideas about things that I think that we might be able to do together, and I just kind of wanted to do kind of a community update as far as, some of the stuff that I've been thinking about. First of all, I would like to invite anybody who's interested and who uses Facebook to our group over there. It's at facebook.com/groups/Project Shadow. And I haven't given Facebook a lot of love lately, and I just thought I would give it a try again. It's been a while since I've tried to do anything over there. I'm going to be posting each day's episode over there for comments and discussion. I'm also going to be posting other stuff over there that I'm thinking about doing for the podcast, be it albums that I'm listening to, books I'm reading, shows I'm watching, thoughts in general. And I think it could be a fun little place for us to hang out. So if you use Facebook, go ahead, check it out. You can just search Project Shadow, and it's linked off of the page. So if you've liked our Facebook page, you can just go to the page and you should see the linked group there and be able to click over. I'm not the master of Facebook. It's not a place where I often spend a lot of time, but I feel like I'm neglecting friends and listeners over there. So I'm going to try to get better. I really promise. I promise. So definitely check it out. Please contribute. I would love to see what you guys are thinking about and wanting me to be talking about on the show, because that really would make a lot of my thoughts easier to congeal into topics for the show, because there's so much that I want to talk about, but I don't know how much time I want to spend on each thing. My husband and I have been doing a reread through the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, for example, and I've really been enjoying it. And so we went through the Silmarillion, and we're now up to Return of the King in the books. And I had considered doing some Tolkien stuff for the podcast, but I've never really done Tolkien stuff on the podcast before, and I didn't know if... See, this is the problem that I'm having, is I'm at this place, and I always get here, where I start worrying about what you all want to hear and what you want to be, want me discussing. So, yeah, I got a pretty good response on the idea that I should do some stuff on Dune, so I've got that on my schedule, and I'll be doing that. I know the Star Trek and Star Wars episodes are usually the biggest episodes that I do on this podcast, so I will continue doing that. There's so much to talk about. Like, I've been thinking about doing a reread of the old Anne McCaffrey books, because, I don't know, I've been wanting to read Dragonflight, Dragon Quest, and The White Dragon again, and Moretta, and, all those. I miss the Pern books. I miss them greatly, and I've been thinking about going back and rereading them, and maybe do something on the show thereabouts. I don't know. We'll see what you guys think. But this is kind of where my head's been lately with the podcast because there's so much that I want to talk about, and I only do 5 episodes a week because anything more would drive me crazy. And I am trying to figure out how to schedule it out in a way that works. I am thinking about adding some other podcasts, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But as far as this podcast goes, I really like the stuff that we're doing with the music and everything. I'm really curious. I mentioned it on a previous episode. So if you don't know, this podcast is hosted by Anchor, and they were recently purchased by Spotify. And they're promising that there's going to be some things there in future. And I'm curious what those are going to be, because I really do enjoy talking about music and a lot of that. But, you know, not being able to play the songs, I've thought about just doing playlists, but I am an Apple Music subscriber, and I guess I can still make playlists on Spotify and share them. And I'm curious if that's something y'all would be interested in. You know, I know this is a lot of questions for the audience, but I really wanted to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in my own mind, because I feel like I'm at a point with the podcast that I really want to make this a much bigger part of my life. I enjoy doing it immensely, and I want to see it grow, and I would like to really build it up into a community of like-minded people so we can discover things together, because that's something that I think becomes difficult sometimes, just because there's so many books out there, and with all the streaming services, there's so many shows out there. And, you know, I saw a lot of excitement when I mentioned that I was going to start doing episodes about The Expanse, because it just went up on Amazon Prime. That's something that I hadn't really thought about doing before. And when I saw that there was some excitement about that, it made me feel like it was something that maybe I should have been doing. And that's, I don't know, this is the mental trap that I get myself in, is I start thinking about what should I be doing, and am I doing the right things? And, you know, one of the things about this show that brought a lot of you to it is, generally speaking, I just talk about whatever I want to talk about, whatever I feel like talking about that day. And I trust that you all are along for the ride, because so many of you have been over the years up until now. But, you know, every so often, I just get this little thought in my head about, you know, could I be doing things better? And I think that's something that the Facebook group could possibly help with, especially if we can get some activity over there. You know, being able to see stories that you all are sharing and what shows you all are watching, and getting more feedback from you all as far as, you know, what series I should be talking about on the show. Because honestly, I could do nothing but old Green Lantern comic reviews and endless discussions about minutia from Harry Potter and Avatar: The Last Airbender forever. I don't do that because I feel like there are other shows that are doing that to a point that, you know, I would feel a bit redundant. But I don't know, maybe you all would be interested in some of those ideas. I don't know. And, you know, that's kind of the scary thing about doing this podcast is, you know, I have enjoyed doing it for years now. I mean, it's like, it's hard to imagine how long I've been doing this podcast. And thanks to our relationship with Anchor, this is the first time that I can look at this as possibly being a career, as something that I could possibly really do as a full-time job. And don't worry if you're listening to me and you like my fiction. I'm a writer at heart and I'll always be writing. But the idea that we could just build a community together and I could be doing this, there's something almost magical about that. And it makes me really excited. And ever since I started thinking about that, I've wanted to have this conversation with all of you. Because, I don't view this as, necessarily my show. I mean, yeah, I'm the one that who does it. And, it's my voice that you hear. Sometimes my husband is on here. I'm looking at maybe doing some interviews with some friends of mine who are writers and musicians and whatnot to get their perspectives on various things, because I think that could be really interesting and a fun thing to share. But, there's so many things that we could do together. And I don't want to make this something that I guess the weirdest thing about this is I want to do it more. Like, I want to spend more time focusing on doing the podcast, but I don't want to turn it into a job. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, what's really cool about some of the stuff that I'm doing now, like with trying to get interviews and stuff, there's no pressure because I haven't done interviews on the podcast in quite some time. If I get interviews, they'd be a nifty thing that I could insert every now and then to make the show better. But I don't want to be spending, all my time trying to land interviews because we're an interview podcast. I don't know. It's a weird thing to try to talk about. And it's a weird thing to be thinking about with what all you could do with a show like this, with a daily show like this. Because there's, as a writer, there are things that I notice in fiction that a lot of people don't, and those are fun to bring out. But I also think that it's really fun to talk about various writing techniques on the show, because especially for non-writers, I think if you're not a writer, getting to see kind of the code in the matrix there and how all that works, it makes you able to sometimes enjoy fiction on a different level, and sometimes makes it easier for you to identify what in a story you didn't like. Because that's where we are today. There's so much out there. And I think the lack of education on various story techniques, and I'm not even talking about tropes or what have you, but just various story writing and storytelling techniques that, some people like them, some people don't. And when you start to see them, you start understanding what it actually is that you like and why you like it. And I can only hope that the episodes that I've done on writing have equipped even people who aren't writers to be able to see those aspects of fiction and get more enjoyment out of the fiction that they're engaging with. Because with everything going on in my life right now, and I know some of you really want me to spill the tea there, but there's just a lot going on. It becomes stressful sometimes to do the podcast. And not stressful in the way of, oh man, I have to get an episode out, blah, 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 blah. It's stressful in that sometimes the topics that I want to discuss, I am concerned will alienate you all and turn you off. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that I'm trying to get past here. And why I wanted to just have an episode where I could sit down and talk with you very openly, because we had a big listener shakeup after my episode about Jussie Smollett. And it kind of shook me a little bit that, I don't know, maybe people come to me for lighter, more entertaining things than that. And I get that. And maybe that's, why what happened there happened. But, I'm only left to wonder, And I don't want to make this into, a serious show with a lot of serious topics. I just want to make it more meaningful. And that's kind of what I've been struggling with lately, is what would be the most meaningful thing that I could do. And we'll talk about that a little bit more after the break. Because, hello, we're back. Because, one of the things that really gets me when I'm sitting around doing this, like, a long time ago, I picked the tagline for the show that, this is Project Shadow, where we reveal unseen wonder. And I really want that to be the heart and soul of everything that I do here. But sometimes it's not that easy. And it's becoming harder and harder given the fact that this kind of cultural malaise that has fallen over everyone has made a lot of the shows that I would normally be talking about on this podcast darker and grimmer. That's really been a trend for quite some time now. And that's one of the reasons why with The Expanse, I want to talk about it, but it's going to be a difficult topic to do because I don't want it to just be about, the boom boom bap of it. I don't want it to be about, the grim aspects of the setting and whatnot. I want to find a way to make it more enjoyable. This is one of the reasons why I didn't do a lot of episodes about Orphan Black, even though it was a show I really, really liked. Because, again, grimdark. This is something that's been tricky with talking about Star Trek, is, season 2 has been considerably less grim than season 1, but it's still there. It's still an increasing part of, a present entity within the show. And I don't want it, I don't want to be focusing on those dark things. That's why I don't even watch Black Mirror because of that. If I want grimdark, I can just go to my life for that. And so that's where some of these things get a lot more tricksy. We could be talking about, Star Wars Resistance on here, but, that show, at least in this season, has been a bit more kidsy. It's been enjoyable, but it's been a bit more of a kidsy show and doesn't have a lot of meat to really discuss for me in it. And maybe that's just a flaw with me and my age, but this is kind of the weird place that I find myself in, is I really want this to be the podcast where we are revealing unseen wonder. And this kind of just almost depressive state has gone over so much of the media. I mean, look at Orange is the New Black, right? That show started, it was basically a comedy. It had some dramatic moments, but it was basically a comedy. And it just got darker and darker and darker and darker and darker. And that tends to be the way a lot of these shows are going. You look at the way Arrow has gone. Flash has gone that way. The only show that's really bucked that trend is Legends of Tomorrow, that I can think of off the top of my head, that has not just completely fallen into this wellspring of despair that is eating the world right now. And I don't want to help the horrors. I don't want to be, out there feeding those dark emotions that are just filling fiction. I mean, as much as I loved Infinity War, and it was a great movie, again, that's that grimdark getting into Marvel. And, it's going to dig out, because that's not Marvel's DNA to stay there, and they're going to get out of it, and it's going to be fun again. And there was a lot of fun in Infinity War itself. It just, had that wonderful bummer ending. But it's something that I see in everything. Like the book that I have coming out, Crucify My Love. It's a fairly dark story. I think it has humor in it. At least my kind of humor in it. Very dry humor. But it's there too. And I don't know. I've really been struggling to find topics to talk about that aren't just focusing on those darker aspects of the world, those darker aspects of society, just because they're so prevalent in the news and we're just so saturated by them that they've infiltrated even Star Trek. Even Star Trek, which was created during the Vietnam War at the beginning of the hippie movement, it was able to be happy and exciting and fun. And I don't know, we can blame CBS for this if we want to, but we've broken Star Trek. That optimism, that excitement, that happiness, that joy, that thrill of adventure. Even it's losing it. And I don't want to be a contributor to that. I want to find a way to do better. I want to find a way for us to get out of this funk and not be mired in it. So one of the things that I'm thinking about doing is with Crucify, when it comes out, I am going to be doing an audiobook version of it, and it's going to be read by me in my lovely dulcet tones. And even though, Audible is going to punish my royalties for this, I am going to be putting out a podcast version of the book because I think that's the way to go. I really do. But on top of that, I've actually been thinking, and this is where I wanted to talk to you. That's why the podcast is titled Writing, Wondering, and Wandering, because I knew I was going to be talking about a lot of different topics today. But one of the things I've been thinking about doing is actually crafting an audio podcast. A fictional story from the ground up that was originally intended to be an audio story. I probably won't cast it because that takes a lot more time than I honestly have right now. That's something that we can look to in the future, to do like a full cast production thing. So again, you'll have to suffer through my voice in that. But I've been thinking a lot about doing that. Just telling a story and making each episode kind of self-contained, but with a story arc that goes on. And doing seasons of it. And I just wanted to kind of float that idea out there and see what people thought about it. Because I think it could be a lot of fun. I actually have a couple different ideas for things that I could do that with. And I can fit them into my schedule and make it work. Because one of the things that draws me to writing is I often write the stories that I don't feel like I'm getting. And when I feel that kind of, missing piece, that kind of empty slot in my enjoyment, I will very often get a story. Like there's a certain kind of fantasy story that I like that I just haven't been able to find, and that's where the Mask of the Gods books came from. And they were to a great extent me scratching, my own itch. And there's other types of fiction out there that, I wish I had more of or had certain kinds of. And one of those is a certain science fiction idea that I've had floating around for a while. If you're familiar with my written work, you kind of have a basic idea of how that works. So I wanted to put that out there because I think it could be a lot of fun to kind of craft that kind of a series, to craft that kind of a show, and put it out there in a way that would tell the story, that would be more exciting, that would, at least, if nothing else, scratch my own itch, and maybe yours too. So, if you are interested at all in the concept of me, in the prospect, I guess I should say, of me doing audio fiction, I would love to know, because it would take it would divert my time and attention from other projects, and I might be okay with that. That might be the right thing for me to do right now. I'm just wondering what you all think. Because I'll tell you right now, I have one science fiction idea and one urban let's say, for simplicity's sake, let's just go really high concept here and say one Harry Potter-ish idea. Kind of a secondary, well, not a full secondary, but, a poldered, wainscoted, not necessarily urban fantasy setting, but contemporary fantasy story. I have a couple ideas that I've been playing around with that might be really fun to try to turn into audio dramas. I'm curious what you think. And I might try doing both. Just do a season of each and see what happens. That could be fun. I don't know, there's so many things that I could be spending my time on. And the one that's really surprising me most is how much I enjoy doing audio programming for everyone. It's not something that I expected to fall in love with. It was something that I always kind of enjoyed doing, but especially here lately, it's really brought me a lot of joy, and I hope it's brought you joy too. So, yeah, let me know. I'd really love to know what you think, especially if you do use Facebook. If you can go to facebook.com/groups/Project Shadow and join the group over there. I'm going to be posting some ideas over there to try to, get the conversation going, because, there's a lot of weird thoughts going on in my head right now. But don't worry, I'm going to continue doing this podcast, and we'll be back on more regular topics tomorrow. I just wanted to share what's been going on with me, because I haven't really done, a state of the podcast in a while, and I haven't, caught you all up with what I've been working on. So I thought it was time. If you enjoyed this podcast, then God bless you. This one can't be an easy one to have enjoyed. But if you did, and the app that you're listening to me on allows you to rate either the podcast or the episode itself, please rate it. That helps out a lot. That tells the algorithm to share the podcast to more people. If you've got $1 you can throw my way, in the show notes you'll see a link that says Anchor Community Support. If you click that link, you can give at the $1, $5, or $10 a month levels. When you become part of the project, you really do help to make all of this happen. You help me get the mic that I'm using, the software that I'm using, and eventually the new computer that I will probably have to get in the not too distant future. Thank you all so much for everything that you do. You have no idea what you all mean to me. If you don't have the money, and trust me, I understand money being tight, I'm going through that right now, please share the podcast with more people and help it to grow. That helps out more than you will ever know. If you want to get in touch with me, like I said, Twitter is a really good place. I'm CE Dorset on Twitter, but also facebook.com/groups/Project Shadow. That we're going to be trying to start something over there. So you can find links to all of the things that I do over at projectshadow.com. And before I leave, I really do want to say again, thank you to everybody who listens to this show and who's been sharing this show and helping me grow and develop it over the years. You all really do mean the world to me. And I'm hoping that you're excited about the idea of some of the other shows that I might be trying to do, because I think they could be really neat and nifty and fun and different. So we'll see. Yeah. Until next time, don't forget, have the fun. Bye.